Well, I'm really pleased to say I'm joined again by our Irish racing experts. Ian Fortune joins us, and Ian, gosh, fresh off the back of a cracking weekend at Shelbourne Park. In terms
it was pretty incredible, Julie. Pretty incredible. Obviously, Pestana has been foot perfect from the start, but on Saturday night it was very much about Newinn Taylor. He was absolutely sensational in victory, 29-13 on a track that shouldn't really allowed for such a time. The conditions were pretty blustery, and there was a real headwind up the home straight, which also means it was in their face on the way to the corner. Now, he did such a massive time, you'd nearly wonder, did the conditions drop or whatnot compared to the rest of the evening, because he really was special out front. There was nothing that could get close to him. Like taking 6 lengths off Ballymac Cooper to halfway was, that was breathtaking.
I think it's fair to say Newinn Taylor surprised you a bit in this competition, hasn't he? I mean, we knew he was a sensational dog, but has he surprised you how well he's taken Shelbourne in the competition?
Oh, well, we knew he took to Shelbourne because obviously he'd made his debut there. He'd run a few races there. He won the actual, what used to be known as the National Puppy Stake before Christmas. So, beating the likes of Ballymac in speed and the likes. So we knew we handled Shelbourne Park. It was more at the 550-yard trip and whether he'd stay it or not. Although there were signs in Clonmel at the Produce Stakes that he was staying a bit better, because the 525-yard trip in Clonmel is a very stiff 525, certainly in terms of Irish racing. It's one of the stiffest. And when he did come to Shelbourne Park, I suppose we did get a fright in the opening round when he hit the front and faded back into third spot. Listen, he showed great pace to get there, but we were going, well, maybe that's that. Maybe the trip is just going to be too much for him. And, he's had a long enough campaign already through the Produce Stakes. And then all of a sudden, it was his run in defeat behind Pestana, actually, in the second round, where he sort of marked out his Derby intentions, because that night, despite Pestana taking an absolute flyer, getting 3 lengths on Newinn Taylor, he showed great speed to close the gap into the corner, then stayed middle to wide throughout, but really stuck with Pestana to the third bend that night. And of course, Pestana broke 30 or 29 seconds, the first dog ever to do it for the 550-yard trip. Newinn Taylor was only 3.5 lengths back. So, yeah, he left us with no doubt that he could get involved in the Derby on that night, and then the 3 subsequent runs have been simply sensational. There's been nothing. There's no other words you can use to describe them. His pace and just acceleration into the opening corner, as well as his pace down the back straight. It's just a sight to behold. On Saturday night, he ran the second bend as well as any greyhound I've ever seen running the second bend at Shelbourne Park. He entered the sort of between the opening 2 bends, about 3 lengths clear of Ballymac Cooper. By the time he emerged into out of the second bend, he was 5 lengths clear. He just took a step right and then drove off his right foot like a rugby winger or someone sort of taking a sidestep around a challenger. He just quickened up so quickly. It was impressive. It was eye-catching. It was devastating. It was really the sign of a dog that's at the very peak of his powers.
And because of all that, Newinn Taylor does line up as the 11-10 favourite for the Irish Derby with Star Sports. So Pestana is 5-4. As far as the betting is concerned, it certainly is all about those two. And you say how devastating Newinn Taylor is there, but Pestana, what a greyhound he's turned out to be through this competition.
Yeah, I used the word last week to describe him, boring, because you know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to bolt from traps, fly to the corner, fly down the back, and get to the line. I dare say his connections take another boring display like that next week, because he remains probably the dog to beat. I know Newinn Taylor is now favourite, and he went considerably faster than I, both to the third bend and to the winning line. But as I've said, I just have a feeling the conditions were probably much worse for Pestana. I would suggest that perhaps the wind and basically the blusteriness of the evening had died down a fraction for Newinn Taylor, because I can't see any reason why there should be a disparity between their times. Like, we know what Pestana is capable of, and to the eye the other night, it was every bit as impressive as his previous runs, especially when you consider Ballymac Wild was in second spot, getting a solo, never touched in the race. Ballymac Wild, he did 29.07 a week earlier, and the other night he's doing 29.53. So listen, if it depends on which side of the argument you're looking, Newinn Taylor or Pestana. People would say I'm making a case for Pestana rather than taking the negatives out of the run. But I don't think there were any negatives. I think this is a dog that really is absolutely flying at present, and I know Owen McKenna was perfectly happy with the dog.
So your tip for the final would be Pestana?
Well, yeah, purely out of belligerence and and the fact that I'm not just going to change my mind, because I've stuck with him from the start, and I always said that until he shows signs of waning or until he shows signs of fatigue, I'd stick with him. And I don't believe he did show any of those signs the other night. I thought it was a brilliant run again from the front, beating an absolutely top class lineup. Like if that had been the lineup of the final, he'd been more than happy, even though there was only five of them. He couldn't have done it any more professionally. Out in front again, gets to the corner, goes down the back, and he stays to the line. So yeah, I'm going to stick with Pestana, but I'm. I know I've predicted this a few times in recent years, but this really could be one of the greats, one of the all-time great races.
Oh, so looking forward to the final. I think it's cracking, as you said. Well done to you as well. You tipped up to our Star Sports viewers, Ballymac Cooper, the big price anti-post. He's made the final. There are, of course, 6 dogs in the final. We've also got Ballymac Wild, Ballymac Cooper, Kilara Icon, and Minar Miracle. Now, can you make a case for any of those winning?
Well, obviously, the bookmakers, the layers like yourselves, have made Ballymac Wild a third choice, and it's understandable. He's well housed in trap one, although he will definitely move to the middle of the track if he does hit the lids. He's the biggest dog in the lineup. He'll be flying up the inside fence, maybe moving off. He won't. He won't. He won't. It won't be too affected if dogs are bumping into him or anything like that. Like this is just a fluent, big, burly greyhound that almost likes the rough and tumble a bit. He's obviously a danger, but I just can't see how he's going to win unless the big two miss the kick. The same for Ballymac Cooper, who has an ideal draw in 5. Like Newinn Taylor is going to fly up on his outside. Pestana is going to fly up on his inside, but Pestana is going to dive straight left. So Ballymac Cooper is definitely going to have room to race. And yeah, I wouldn't just discount Cooper. I wouldn't be surprised if Cooper finished in front of Ballymac Wild, the two Ballymacs. I think Cooper, being the oldest in the race, which is a remarkable statement considering he's only just gone 3 years of age himself. You know, it's probably the youngest Derby final in history. I'd have no doubt about that. But yeah, Ballymac Cooper at a big price could run well, but listen, it's going to be very hard to see past the big two.
Okay, so Pestana would be your tip, 5-4 at the moment with Star Sports. Now we have to turn our attentions to our derby over here, due off in just a few weeks. It's a very tight turnaround. What's the latest news on who will or won't be coming? Because obviously many people are holding out on their anti-post bets here until they know.
Well, Graham Holland has suggested, we saw that last week, that he's going to bring at least a team of 5. I would be surprised if he didn't bring a team of 7 or 8 when he's going. He might as well go, and he has the firepower. And the great news is that Lenson Bocco will be there. We didn't see the best of him in Shelbourne Park for this year's derby, but if he produces the form he produced last year, he is perhaps the one they have to beat, although maybe the biggest danger to him could come in the form of one of his kennel companions. I think Newinn Session, the dog that Graham is bringing, was literally moulded for Nottingham. This is a real greyhound with exceptional pace from start to finish, and we have yet to see the best of him. He's only had a handful of races. He's only tasted defeat on 2 different occasions, and one of them was in the opening round of the Derby when he was desperately unlucky. He ran into traffic problems on the opening corner, actually ran into one of his own kennel companions. But yeah, this is an exceptionally fast greyhound, one I expect to take to Nottingham. Paul Hennessy has suggested he'll be over with a couple. You'd imagine Price's Blake, the defending champion, will be one of them. I didn't delve any further, but have no doubt. I think Paul is looking forward to getting there. I know Peter Cronin sent over a couple. There are a few Irish dogs that have travelled over that will be trained in England for the competition. After that, it's hard to know where the likes of Pat Buckley will go or not. And again, he has people that he could send over with the dogs, and I suppose that's the key. You can't come over and back. So the 6 weeks is or the 5 weeks, 4 weeks, in fact, nowadays is going to be the problem. Of course, that's granted you get to the final, but there are ways and means around it, and I'm sure a few people are going to be on their holidays in England, staying for a few weeks because traveling over and back is not an option.
Absolutely.
Obviously, it's not ideal that we have to, if you do that, you have to register dogs in the English trainer's name. So it'd be interesting to see. But again, once this weekend is over, our focus in Ireland will turn both to the English Derby and to our own laurels. And thankfully, 2 different types of greyhounds. And I suppose that's thankful for small mercies that the Laurels is the one that's clashing with the English Derby rather than one of the 550-yard classics, because the Laurels really is for the dogs that are speed merchants that wouldn't get 500 meters in a black taxi. So, yeah, I think we'll have a team. It won't be a massive team like last year or previous years, but it'll be a select team. And given there's only 96 runners, it could more than suffice.
And of course, if they're trained by English trainers, we're going to claim them all day long as
Well,
being.
they're not all going to be trained by English trainers. I know Nicky Holland will be representing Graham Holland, and I know they're staying in England for the duration, so they'll be Irish trained. Have no fear about that. And when you have the likes of Newinn, Session, and Lenson Bocco, and others, 3 or 4 other greyhounds that are perfectly capable of doing 29-20s around Nottingham, well, then I still fancy our chances.
A few of the dogs you mentioned there, Prices Blake 66-1 with Star Sports. Newinn Session still available at 20-1. Lenson Bocco joint anti-post favourite at 10-1 with Pestana. Now you didn't mention Pestana there, and of course Newinn Taylor. Those two very, very high up in the betting. Pestana joint favourite 10-1. Newinn Taylor is 16-1. Are they coming?
I honestly don't know. I would imagine they're playing the waiting game with Newinn Taylor, see how he comes out of Saturday night. Obviously, he's an Irish Derby to contend to. With first €115,000 to the winner on Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. So he'll owe them nothing if he goes on to win that. I still fear for the long run home in Nottingham with him, but there isn't a greyhound in training in Ireland or England that could stay with him to the third bend. So perhaps they may change their mind. When I say change their mind, I'd make up their mind more so than change their mind, although it was never on the agenda earlier in the year. But of course, with the later start date, they may look at going. Pestana, I would be very surprised if he turns up. Owen McKenna has suggested earlier this year that it wasn't on his radar. Now the dog is a little bit older, of course, and but he's had a lot of racing in the space of the last 2 months since lockdown was lifted. He had 3 or 4 races prior to the Derby. He had the Champion Stakes. He had obviously his run through the Derby. So it's a lot of racing to heap on a dog that's still relatively young and still has next year to look forward to. I don't know. If he does come, I can't imagine it's going to be with Owen McKenna on the lead. He may send him over with view to getting him back.
Well, what a great weekend you've got to look forward to. It's a cracking Irish Derby final, and then we've got the English Derby. It's going to be an amazing 6 weeks, and hopefully you'll keep us posted on your thoughts on the Irish runners throughout it all. Ian, thank you so much for your thoughts, and well, good luck with your tip for Pestana Saturday night, and we're looking forward to that race very much.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks for your thoughts. Bye.